الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا ومولانا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين ولعنة الله على أعدائهم إلى قيام يوم الدين. Tonight we're here to commemorate and remember the martyrdom of Imam Jafar Al-Sadiq alayhi salam, the Imam that we're attributed to him. They call us Ja'fari because the number of narrations that we have from Imam Sadiq. Some say maybe even 70% of fiqh and jurisprudence that we have is from Imam Sadiq alayhi salam. Some say that 50% of the hadith that we have is from Imam Sadiq alayhi salam. So according to the fact that we owe Imam Sadiq the salat that we pray, the hajj that we go to, the ibadat that we have, the different acts of worship and the different laws that we have, we owe it to Imam Sadiq alayhi salam for reviving the sunnah of Rasulullah, reviving the tafsir of Quran, the meaning of the Quran for us, and reviving ideology and beliefs. We owe Imam Sadiq alayhi salam much. So therefore, tonight we come to remember this great Imam, the Imam that was one of the oldest of Imams. Some say he was martyred at the age of 65. Some say he was martyred at the age of 71. I know that we had this important discussion from sister, so therefore I'm going to make it a little bit shorter tonight so we can also do azadari for Imam Sadiq alayhi salam. When we look at Islah and we look at Reformation, we see that the prophets and Imams are sent so that they can do Islah, so that they can change and reform society. When you look at verses of the Holy Quran, you see the statements of the prophets themselves. They say that we have come for Islah. Islah means to put things and rectify them and to reform them and put them in exactly how they should be. We have, for example, Prophet Shu'aib mentioning in chapter 11, verse 88 in the Quran, In uridu illa al-islah mastata'at wa ma tawfiqi illa billah. And that I do not want anything except for Islah, to reform you, as much as I am able. And my success is not but through Allah. Through this verse, we understand that Islah, one is as much as I am able. Why do you think a prophet cannot fully do Islah? Why would Prophet Shu'aib in the Quran say, as much as I'm able, mastata'at? Because people have to want to change. The Anbiya cannot force them to change if they don't want to change. People have to want to change, and the Anbiya and the prophets come and they give them the way and the method to change themselves. 2, وَمَا تَوْفِيقِ إِلَّا بِاللَّهِ. Second is that I cannot change them as a prophet. They have to want to change, and Allah wants them to change. Allah will give them that blessing and barakah to be able to change. Many of us, when we look at Islah in our own personal lives, we see that Allah changed us. Many people that were non-Muslim and they're Muslim, they were not religious and now they are religious. Sometimes we never thought there are people that I know, they were not religious even in their own countries when they migrated. They came to the US and they found religion here. They did Islah here. Why? Because Allah saw something good in them and said, I'm going to change this person. I'm going to open his heart to Islam. Because that same message you tell somebody else is, I don't want to accept it. Doesn't make sense. Maybe they'll laugh at it. They'll ridicule it. But the other person, they'll hear one thing, say, oh, that makes sense. I like that. Tell me more. I'm interested. Why? Because Allah does inshirahul qalb. So that inshirah, opening of the chest, is up to Allah. We have other verses about Islah. In marriage, for example, Quran mentions in chapter 4:35 that in yurida islahan yuwaffiq Allahu baynahuma. And if these two that are facing divorce, they're facing dissension between these two, if they want islah, if they want to rectify islaha, if they want to rectify that relationship, then Allah will give them tawfiq. Allah will allow these two to be reunited. But if the husband, if the wife, none of them want marriage to work, the guy wants to, for example, abuse the wife doesn't really care, wants to abuse the husband, they don't want it to work. We see from this verse very beautifully, in yuradu islahan, if they want to rectify things. But sometimes in marriage, there are cases where husband doesn't want to change, wife does not want to change. Allah will not change them until they want change themselves. So another concept that we understand from this verse in Holy Quran is that God will change a people that want change. If they don't want to happen, change will not happen. And then Allah will put these two, exactly how verses of the Quran say before, that mawadda and rahmah that happened before, Allah will place them, inshallah, in their hearts again. Imam Sadiq alayhi salam was Imam that rectified and did Islah of community. Because we said all the prophets, all the Imams and their successors came to do Islah. Imam Sadiq alayhi salam beautifully has a dua, has a prayer, a supplication. This says, Rabbi Slih, related to Imam Sadiq, Rabbi Slih nafsi, God, rectify and change my nafs. The first part of the dua of Imam Sadiq is that God, change me. You have to want change yourselves. You have to want that. Many times we don't even do dua for ourselves. God, change me. We think I'm a perfect human being. I don't have any faults. I don't need to be changed. Who needs to be changed? The other guy needs to be changed. He's a crook. I don't steal people's money, for example. I'm good. The other guy, the other, for example, sister, she's corrupt. She needs to be changed. I'm so arrogant that I don't understand that the only way for me to become better is for Islah happen to me. And Imam Sadiq alayhi salam is teaching us, he's making dua, that all of us should want Islah. All of us should ask for it. Allah, change me, make me better. I'm in fault. I'm not where I'm supposed to be. I have a potential out there that I'm not even close to reaching. فَإِنَّهَا أَهَمُّ الْأَنفُسِ إِلَيْهِ. How beautiful Imam Sadiq says, change me because the most important nafs, most important thing to me is who? Yourself. Imam Sadiq says, change me because I'm the most important. Sometimes, no, my kids are the most important. My parents are most important. Have you ever been in an earthquake? Have you ever seen, for example, a wild animal chase someone? Sometimes you see that mother that claims so much she cares about the kids, she just cannot even protect the kids and just will run away first. Or an earthquake that happens. They could not even protect the kids or family, they just protect themselves. Because that's the nafs. Imam Sadiq says the most important person to us is who? Ourselves. So therefore, who should we first want Islah? Me. Why? Because it's the most beloved. Yourself, when it even comes to your own bad breath, you don't mind. You like it sometimes. When even it comes to other smells and not taking a shower, you don't get bothered yourself as much. But God forbid somebody has a little bit, didn't take a shower one day, didn't brush your teeth, what is that? Because you have hubb nafs, you love yourself so much. Even sometimes the kids. So go take a shower, kid, but yourself, if there's nobody else, and the youth maybe understand this better when they're just ordering pizza and playing video games for 3 days straight, for example, they don't mind. They like that smell. To them, their own smell. Right? So we have hubb nafs. We love ourselves. So the first thing is, Allah, Imam Sadiq says, change myself. 2, Rabbi aslih li dhurriyati فَإِنَّهُمْ يَدِي وَعُدَدِي. God, the second thing that Imam Sadiq alayhi salam says pray for is for my dhurriyah, my family members, my children. He says, make dua for them. Make dua because they are my hand, they are my support. Don't forget to make dua for your kids. All the time, it's very important. God, Make them Quran mentions. Make them of the Muslimin. Make them of the Musallin. Make them pray. Make them Muslim. Make them have wilayat of Amir al-Mu'mineen. Make them have aghabat bil khair. Make them have a good ending, husn al-aghabat to their end. Give them a good spouse. Give them a halal job. Constantly caring about your children. Some of the ulama and some of the urafa, they wouldn't even just focus on their kids. They were so smart. They're so wise. They say 7 generations protect them. And then you see 7 generations, they're all pious, all good, mashallah. Because one person, their great-grandfather, made dua for 7 generations. And Allah accepted their dua. I say when you make dua, pray all the way from all your dhurriyyah, if you have children, all the way in family, all the way to the day of judgment. Why not? And when you say, bless my fathers and parents that have passed away and grandparents, make dua all the way up to Adam, for example. رَبِّ اصْلِحْ لِي أَهْلَ بَيْتِي فَإِنَّهُمْ لَحْمِي وَدَمِي. My family, for example, because they are my flesh and blood. رَبِّ اصْلِحْ لِي جَمَاعَةَ إِخْوَانِي وَأَخَوَاتِي وَمُحِبِّي فَإِنَّ صَلَاحُهُمْ صَلَاحِي. How beautiful. Imam Sadiq says, make dua for each other, for your brothers, your sisters. Because if they are good, you are good. If they are corrupt, you will be corrupt. Your family will be corrupt. So making dua for others. Making sure that sometimes we see a fault with someone. What do? So should the believer just say, oh, get the phone, hey, I saw this person, he's corrupt, don't hang out with him anymore, for example. I saw this. I said, did you see that post? He's corrupt, kick him out of the masjid. I don't want him to be at the masjid anymore. Or say, no, Allah, do islah of him. He made a mistake. He's my brother. I had spent so much time with him. I had meals with him. Make dua for him. Unfortunately, we have this attitude of throwing people in the trash very fast. He's not good enough anymore. Or I knew he was munafiq, hypocrite. Get out of here, for example. No, Allah help him. He's going through trouble. Didn't we have trouble sometimes? Wasn't there a time period where your iman was tested and you need your brothers to make dua for you to come back? So do that. Imam Sadiq, do dua for myself. Do dua of my dhurriyyah, my descendants. Do dua of my family, my wife, my husband. Make dua of them. Because they're the mother of your children, they're the father of your children. Do dua for them. Don't always curse them. Make dua for them as well sometimes. It's okay. And the last is each other. 3 types of islah Imam Sadiq alayhi salam did. Again, I'm going to make it short. I'll hit, inshallah, 30 minutes of time. The first is islah when it comes to beliefs. Imam Sadiq alayhi salam changed people's beliefs. Brothers and sisters, if our beliefs are corrupted, it's hard to change. If our beliefs, you can change bad behavior. But somebody that has the wrong belief, somebody that says weird and corrupt things, it's hard to change that person. You can't. It's not impossible. But behavior is easier to change than ideology. Imam Sadiq alayhi salam spent a lot of time changing the beliefs of people. He trained students like Hisham ibn Hakam that would go and debate with people that many times people were afraid to contest them or to challenge. Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, when it comes to belief, there's an interesting hadith that he would argue with the atheist many times. And he argues with the atheist and he says this, and I want you to understand if this is a good argument, of course it is or not. Imam Sadiq says, for example, this child that cries, who taught him how to cry? Sometimes you look at a child crying, wah, whatever. You see, though, you think that they're just expected to do that. But who taught him? Who taught him to cry? And how come they all cry like the same? Who taught that? Allah. Saying that's why Allah exists. Somebody taught that knowledge. Or, for example, he says, baby birds, baby chicks. Who taught them? This is interesting. Imam Sadiq taught the knowledge of Imam Jafar Al-Sadiq. He has students, polymaths were his students that understood chemistry and discovered chemistry were his students of Imam Sadiq. These chicks that you see when they're newborn, they go out and some of them eat meat, and some of them eat plants. Who taught them to eat the plant? Who taught them to eat the meat? For example, eagles or hawks or whatever, they like meat. That's what they eat. And some chicks, they like plants and herbs. He says, for example, who taught them? Who taught them to go over the plants or you to go over meat? Was there a class? What university was this? Allah. It proves Allah's existence. Because there's knowledge. If there's knowledge, who taught that knowledge? Third, interesting, Imam Sadiq says, this chick, it goes in the water. It's at a young age. It swims. Did it go to swimming school? Did it have a swimming instructor? Who taught it how to swim? How come this one can swim, for example, so easily? Who taught it? That's knowledge, a skill, then somebody must have taught it. Then the last, Imam Sadiq beautifully mentions to this person, he says, for example, when it comes to a human, when you look at an ant, for example, and you compare it to a human, did you ever put an ant on water? What happens? It floats, swims. This ant, you put it on water, it swims. A human, if you put that human at the age of 50 years old, at an old age, Imam Sadiq says, you put him in water, he drowns. Human. Who taught this ant how to swim? And who taught, for example, that chick how to swim? Who taught that chick how to eat meat? How to eat, for example, search for these things. So this is some of the knowledge that Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, he was breaking the mentality and the ideology of the atheist. What is the atheist going to say to that? The second part that Imam Sadiq alayhi salam did Islam, because there was a shift of power from Umayyads to Abbasids, I'm sure you've heard. That's why Imam Sadiq was allowed to teach. He was allowed, had more freedom. He comes to Mina, Hajj, they say, in different directions with a very loud voice. He mentions the Imams and in front of everyone. You know, he had Sunni students. He had students that were not Shia. He had good relations with Ahl Sunnah. He would go and he would tell us to have good relationships. If they passed away, he would see them, visit them, teach them. But when it came to Imams and Imamat, Imam Sadiq alayhi salam gave life again. He would give with a clear, loud voice in Mina and Hajj that the Imam after Rasulullah is Ali ibn Abi Talib, thumma al-Hasan, thumma al-Husayn, thumma Ali ibn al-Husayn, thumma Muhammad ibn Ali. And then thumma, for example, me. Then he would do ishara, then it's me. 3 times. Then he would face another direction. Say the same thing, proclaim the Imams to everyone. Then to another direction, then to another direction. In 4 directions, 3 times. So that's 12. 12 times he would make it clear who the Imams were. That's doing Islah to the mentality that people had forgotten Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam. People had forgotten where Imam Ali was even buried. That Imam Sadiq went. He went and did ziyarat to Imam Ali, showed where he's buried. How madloom was Imam Ali that for this hundreds of years almost, say 50, 100 years, nobody knew where he was buried except the Imams. And then he paid money. He had them build something around the shrine of Ali ibn Abi Talib. Imam Sadiq gave life to Karbala. He did Islah. And he told people he visited himself, Imam Hussein's shrine. He would give ziyarats, teach different ziyarats and texts how to talk to Imam Hussein, how to say salam to Imam Hussein. The ziyarat of Hadrat Abbas that we have is from Imam Sadiq. Ziyarat al-Arba'in that we have is from Imam Sadiq. He taught us how to do ziyarat and say salam to Imam Hussein. He taught us that whoever gives one poetry, taught us to cry for Imam Hussein. Whoever gives one bayt, one poetry for Imam Hussein, they will have heaven, those sins will be forgiven. He taught us again how to cry for Imam Hussein, give poetry for Imam Hussein. He gave wilayat again to the people. Imam Sadiq, so that is about Aqidah and belief. The second Islah that happened is the Islah of behavior, changing ourselves. How did Imam Sadiq change our behavior? I'm going to give a few examples because we are running out of time. Once Imam Sadiq was with this person named Sama'a. And Sama'a enters and Imam Sadiq alayhi salam says, Ya Sama'a, ma hadha alladhi kana baynak wa bayna jamalik. Jamalik. Jamal is a person that carries, for example, the camel. For example, what happened with you, Sama'a, with this person that you, is information reached Imam Sadiq that this person was Sama'a, that he knew, cursed and used vulgar language. Sometimes the youth, I talk to them, they say, what is one of the problems that you admit to have? They say, we have bad mouths. Youth, Muslim, Shia youth, they say we have bad vulgar language. They talk to each other, maybe not in front of your parents. When they talk to each other, they use bad words. Imam Sadiq does islah of behavior and mentions to Sama'a. And in Sama'a tries to say, he did dhulm to me, he wronged me. Imam Sadiq alayhi salam says, Iyaka an takunu fahashan aw sakhaban aw la'anan. Do not be like this in a way that you curse others, for example, or use vulgar language or obscene or loud language. To do islah of the tongue. A person comes to Imam Sadiq, and this might apply to us in some situations, or maybe to the other masjid, not our masjid. He said, I have a wife that has a very bad mouth. She curses, she uses vulgar language. I know this is not our masjid, this is the other masjid. We're speaking to the other masjid. Imam Sadiq alayhi salam says, in the tradition, story says, bring her to me. Bring her to me. And she doesn't even listen to the advice of Imam Sadiq. Imam Sadiq is talking to her. Some people are so bad and rude and arrogant. When he mentions the husband, she mentions, قَاتَلَهُ اللَّهُ. May Allah kill my husband. I hate him. She doesn't listen to Imam Sadiq. Imagine the Imam of the age is wanting islah, wanting change. And she says, be good to your husband. She says, may Allah kill my husband. Bad mouth. Some people are like this. Sometimes it's husbands. Sisters, don't say I'm, for example, against this. Sometimes it's the husband. He's a jerk at home. Always has criticizing, always has a bad mouth. And yet, they say they're Ja'fari. They say they're Shia of Imam Sadiq alayhi salam. Imam Sadiq alayhi salam advises the husband and says that this wife is going to die in 3 days because of that bad mouth that she had. 3 days. And they say, the husband was happy actually. Some husbands are actually that their wives are going to die because the wife was giving him such a hard time. Sometimes the wife is so sweet, so nice. The guy, he cries and cries like Al-Nabi would cry, would be so sad after his wife passed away. He would cry all the time, for example. But some, in general, either husbands or wives are in a way that if they die, actually they're happy. Thank you, God. Thank you for your blessing, for example. Or husbands, for example. Sometimes husbands are like this. I said this is not for this masjid. Everyone here loves each other. It's for the other masjid. These example, not for this masjid. So, islah of language, islah of behavior, because we're running out of time. The last, in these next 5 minutes, islah of society. Now, Imam Sadiq is Imam. Some say Imam Sadiq was not political. He would just teach. He would not revolt. One of the generals, for example, came to Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, Abu Muslim Khurasani, Persian general. He killed the Umayyads. And he comes to Imam Sadiq and he wants to give him the government. Gives him a letter through a messenger, says, for example, become leader. We want you to become a leader. Imam Sadiq alayhi salam burns his letter. Powerful general, changed the government, destroyed the Umayyads. Says, you lead. Imam Sadiq alayhi salam then mentions very interesting, ma anta min rajali, you are not of my people. He committed maybe genocide, he killed lots of people. Wala zaman zamani, and time is not my time. He knew. Does this mean he was not political? No. It means that he does not trust Abu Muslim. Too, it means that time is not his time. But when he says, Imam, I am the Imam, That is the most political statement. What does it mean when I'm saying I am the Imam? Meaning that Abbasid Khalifa is wrong. It means that Umayyad Khalifa is wrong. So Imam Sadiq was the most political of people. But time, he looked at the time, he looked at the place. So therefore you see that Imam Sadiq alayhi salam did Islah of the people. Because we are running out of time, I want to explain to you one of the interesting traditions and end with this that Imam Sadiq alayhi salam did. And how much he cared to reform society. I had hadith about justice and Imam Sadiq talking about justice. But once Sadira Sayrafi, they say that him and other people like Mufaddal ibn Umar, maybe you heard of Mufaddal ibn Umar, or maybe you heard of Abu Basir, important companions of Imam Sadiq, or maybe you heard of Aban ibn Taghlib, maybe you heard of these companions. They entered the house of Imam Sadiq. In this tradition, Kamal ad-Din, Imam Sadiq was on the dirt, was crying like a person that has just lost their child, he's crying. They see him and he's making this dua. He says, Sayyidi, غيبتك نفت رقادي وضيقت على مهادي وابتزت مني راحة فؤادي. My master, my Seyyed, your occultation has taken away my night's sleep. It has narrowed my bed for me and has snatched away the solace and comfort from my heart. Who is Imam Sadiq alayhi salam talking about? Who is this Seyyed? Here, غيبتك. Who is it? غيبتك نفت رقادي. Who had غيبت? Who has occultation? This is one of those amazing narrations that Imam Sadiq is speaking to Imam Mahdi, is speaking to the Imam of the age. How can he speak while Imam Mahdi has not come into this world yet? Has Imam Mahdi been created? Yes. His light and nur. His light and nur. In Ziyad Jama we read their light and nur before Allah sent them down. Imam Sadiq taught us about Imam al-Zaman. He revived the belief of Imam al-Zaman. He talked about the different occultations. He's speaking to the Imam and he's realizing what type and situation that the believers will have during the occultation. What time is this? Now. This time period. The time that we are orphans. This is what he is worried about justice. Then they ask him and he brings the book of Jafr. This is a book that had Razaya and Balaya. This had the events of the future. He reads from this. One of the inheritance that the Imams have. And they say that Imam of the age has this book now. As the events of the future. وَتَأَمَّلْتُ مِنْهُ مَوْلُدِ. I'm going to change the name of Imam Mahdi. وَغَيْبَتُهُ. I looked at this book, he says. I looked at this book and it talks about the wiladat of Imam Mahdi. And it talks about the disappearance of Imam Mahdi. وَإِبْتَاءَهُ وَطَوْلَ عُمْرُهُ. And the protraction, prolonging and length of his lifespan, because his comparison to Prophet Nuh is like his comparison of life. His comparison to Prophet Musa alayhi salam is the comparison that he was hidden when his mother was pregnant, how Prophet Musa's mother was pregnant. His comparison to Isa alayhi salam is that Allah took him away and protected him and gave him life, just how Allah protected Imam Mahdi. Then mentions وَبَلْوَ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ فِي ذَلِكَ الزَّمَانِ. He is crying because of the situation of the believers, the pain of the believers that they would face during the occultation, the bala. Brothers and sisters, you've seen 6 months of genocide. You've seen, I think your eyes have seen things that you wish in your life you never ever saw and you hope you'd never see again. I'm sure you've seen videos and images of children, and you ask yourself, why does a child, a newborn, deserve to have their leg amputated, their face to be cut and stitched? We've seen bala, we've seen tribulations. All of this is because our Imam is an occultation. All of this is because they left Ali ibn Abi Talib alone from the beginning or else he would have turned this world into a beautiful and peaceful place. That's why Imam Sadiq alayhi salam mentions in hadith that every blood that is spilled, those that put Ali alayhi salam aside, they are responsible. Because if Amir al-Mu'mineen would have ruled this world, then Imam Hassan, Imam Hussein, there would be no injustice in the world. They would not allow it, because one of the purposes of the government of prophets and imams is to help the oppressed, to remove injustice. So therefore, you see, Imam Sadiq alayhi salam is crying for the long ghaibat and the bala that's going to happen during this ghaibat. And now we've gotten a little taste of this. May inshallah we continue the path of the imams, that they do islah, and we can do islah of ourselves, our own beliefs, our own behavior, inshallah. Again, as long as you want it. Do you want to change? You have to want it. Maybe you don't want to change. You're comfortable how you are. You think you're the best person ever. That's fine. That's up to you. But our Imam did not make dua like this. He told us to make dua for ourselves, to change ourselves. Hopefully we can change society with our activism in helping the oppressed, inshallah. We can dim the lights with a salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa Tawassul and crying for imams is very important. This is our capital, brothers and sisters. What else do you rely on? Do you rely on your actions, your du'as? You rely on your ibadat? How do we know it's accepted? But we know one thing is real. That today you're wearing black, many of you. You're sad. And you made the huzn and grief of Imam Sadiq your grief, because you know they are the best people ever. Imam Sadiq alayhi salam has two similarities to his mother, Sayyidat Fatima alayhi salam. To Lady Fatima, Imam Sadiq alayhi salam is similar to her, because during his death, when they poisoned Imam Sadiq, and this is true poison, one of the biggest, some say, pains that someone can have is being bitten by a snake. They say in terms of pain, this is the worst pain. Some snakes and some species of venomous snakes, when they bite you, that pain that causes to your muscles, to your nerves, is unparalleled to anything. And they say that poison that they gave the imams is similar to being bitten by a snake. One of the most harmful, one of the most hurtful and painful experiences someone can have. At such a time, Imam Sadiq alayhi salam is in pain. Imam Sadiq alayhi salam mentions to his wife Hamida, tells Hamida to come, and tells her about the shafa'at of our Shia. And says that they will not receive our intercession if they don't do salat. What does this mean? Have you ever seen when someone is in pain, they can only think of themselves? But your Imam, brothers and sisters, was thinking of you, was thinking of your shafa'at, was thinking of your intercession, telling us, Shia, make sure you pray. I'm in pain. I'm being poisoned. I'm dying. But I care about you. Make sure you do your salat so you can go to heaven. Sayyidah Fatima with broken ribs. Asma comes. Bint Umays, she had broken ribs, damaged head, injured arm, pierced chest. She does not complain again about herself. This is the similarity. But yet here she asks Allah, أن تغفر لي لأصاة الشيعة. Allah forgive the sinners from the Shia. She remembers not necessarily the perfect ones. She says, Allah forgive the sinners of my Shia. She remembered you. Imam Sadiq remembered you. We have to remember him. Two, the second similarity of Imam Sadiq alayhi salam to his mother, Lady Fatima alayhi salam, is the fact that a few times they came and they threw fire at the house of Imam Sadiq alayhi salam. just how they set fire to the house of Sayyidah Fatima. This is they share. Both of them, fire was sent upon their house. They say that Imam Sadiq, his neighbors came, they turned off the fire. Some say here, he's sitting and crying, sad. Maybe they're wondering, it's okay, nothing happened, we turned off the fire. Imam Jafar Al-Sadiq, we turned it off. Some say here, maybe he was crying and thinking, they turned off this fire, but what about the fire of the tents of the family of Imam Hussein alayhi salam after they beheaded him, after they put his holy head on the spear? They came to the family. There were children there, 10, 20 children in Karbala. They shot arrows, and there Imam Sajjad mentions to the children to do firar and run away, each child to run a different direction while their tents were on fire. Inna lillah, inna ilayhi raji'un. We'll do Rosa and Nutmiyah for Imam Sadiq. Ya Allah, accept our majalis, inshallah, accept our azadari, help the oppressed, help those that are helping the oppressed, expedite the return of the Imam of the age with a salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ali.